Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to do a systematic review step by step. And by the end, you should understand this whole process from start to finish, as I've tried to break it down to many easier steps. And even if you have never done one before, you will at least get the idea of what are the various terms and steps involved in conducting a systematic review. When we think about doing systematic reviews, meta-analysis, evidence synthesis, grade, assessment, we often find ourselves in this valley of despair where we are ready to quit. So this will be a first start to get out of this towards informed optimism. We at IBS we are one of the 27 technical resource centers across India, and with the core objectives of developing capacity building for evidence synthesis experts and also guideline development and applying grade and evidence to decision frameworks, various terms which will be uh, getting to know throughout this. So to understand why we do systematic reviews, this is the big picture. Everything in guideline development flows one way. We have certain questions that we want to answer to and develop guidelines, then gathering and synthesizing every study which answers it. So that's how systematic review sits right in the middle. It is the evidence engine, one can say. And if the review is weak, then everything downstairs inherits the weakness. So how does evidence become a guideline? So first step is collation of evidence. That is what today's class is about, systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And then we grade this evidence for the quality of evidence. And then we formulate the recommendation from evidence to decision. So these are the three steps in guideline development process. And DHR, Department of Health Research, with DGHS and program divisions take approximately 9 to 12 months to formulate the recommendations in the form of guidelines. So, so what a systematic review is and why does it matter? A systematic review turns a messy pile of research into one solid defensible answer, and that's what guidelines and health policy are based on. It uses explicit, which is known, pre-specified and reproducible methods to identify, select, appraise, and synthesize all studies relevant to a clearly defined question. But why should we bother about it, and why one trial rarely settles it? So here's the problem we are trying to solve. If you look up almost any medical question, you will find studies that disagree with each other. So 4 small trials can give you different answers. So which one do you believe? So systematic review will solve this following a method, not by picking the study we like best, but it makes 3 simple promises to find all the studies, to judge them fairly along the selected criteria, and combine them openly to so that anybody can retrace what we did. This table looks busy, but the message is simple, that review is not one single thing. There are various types: systematic review, narrative reviews, rapid reviews, scoping reviews. The scope of each of these reviews is different. Systematic review will answer a focused question very thoroughly. A scoping review will just map out the research, what research exists. A narrative review is a looser overview, and a rapid review is a quick version for urgent decisions, and many more. Today, we are going to focus on systematic reviews. So this is the most commonly evidence hierarchy slide that is seen. This is the evidence of hierarchy, and systematic review and meta-analysis sit at the very top. And one important point is that this ranking is about how well each design will protect against bias, and it is not about whether any single study is good or bad. So a well-done lower down study can also be valuable. One important distinction between systematic review and meta-analysis is that meta-analysis is just an optional step inside a systematic review. And if, as we will go down the slides, we'll learn about the heterogeneity amongst different studies. So not every systematic review will have a meta-analysis, but every meta-analysis will have a sitting systematic review inside it. So if you pool studies that are very different from each other, we will get a number that looks precise but actually means nothing. So meta-analysis is actually an exception to a systematic review, not a routine thing. So we will today go step by step through these 8 steps. I have taken an example of the best reviews that should be referred, a Cochrane Library review related to NFLD, weight reduction for NFLD review. So they have asked these 8 questions as per these 8 steps. So let's go one by one, framing the question. So you must have heard about this popular tool, PICO. It breaks your question into 4 parts. Population, for example, in this, adults and children with NFLD, in this example of Cochrane. State OC on biopsy or imaging. Intervention was intended, weight reduction, lifestyle programs or orlistat, and comparator, placebo or no intervention. And they had defined outcomes, mortality and quality of life, liver histology, adverse events. So we as technical resource centers, DHR actually commissions systematic reviews to us to develop guidelines. So PICO is generally given by the DHR to us. But since PICO is the most important part that we can focus on to do systematic review. On PICO will depend your eligibility criteria, inclusion and exclusion criteria, and also your search strategy. So spending time to develop PICO is very important. So PICO has many cousins for different types of questions, and you don't need to learn all of these, but for example, in PECO, it will be exposure that replaces intervention, then PICO's study design timeframe setting. There are also SPIDER, PIRO, and such things, and depending on the where you want to use it. So this is again on Cochrane example from PICO to eligibility criteria. So depending on the PICO that they had set, they will now include or exclude the studies and define this eligibility criteria. For example, adults or children with NAFLD was included, but coexisting chronic liver disease were excluded, and so on. Next steps come protocol and registration. So why a protocol is important is because it is a promise made before the data can tempt you, and deviations are allowed, but they must be declared and justified. So there's a term called as harking, hypothesizing after the results are known. So to avoid this, a protocol is required, and it creates transparency, avoids duplicacy. So for example, this Cochrane review by Peng, it is an honest example of what a protocol is for. This review actually began as someone else's protocol back in 2002. But a new team took over the title and published an updated protocol in 2010. So they declared it. And when they wrote it up, they openly listed everything that changed. They dropped the surgical trials because a separate review covered them, and so on and so forth. Then we register our protocol. Once your protocol is ready, you register it on a free public database called Prospero, run by the University of York. So why? Because it creates a public time-stamped record for your plan, and that is your strongest defense against anyone later suspecting you of changing your findings to suit your conclusions. So register before you start screening, and ideally before you even search. Registering after you have results defeats the whole purpose. So as a TRC, we actually, when our protocol is ready, we send it to our TR hub, technical resource hub, to vet it, and ideally it should have search strategy, inclusion, exclusion criteria, and PICO all well defined. So this is how Prospero registration page actually looks like. It is free, it is quick, and once it is registered, it's there for the world to see and proof that your plan came first. So there are various reporting standards that tells you what to include. There isn't just one, but Prisma 2020 we follow for reporting reviews. It is a 27-item checklist. As it is well known that a systematic review is a team effort, so you will want content experts, methodologists who can guard the process, information specialists who can design and peer review the search. But as I've started to learn, I've realized that we can learn all being a methodologist, information specialist along the way, but we definitely need a content expert to complete the review. Coming to the third, searching the literature, which is the most daunting and looks intimidating at first, but systematic search takes multiple sources like PubMed, Scopus, Embase, and Cochrane. These four are the mandatory databases that DHR tells us to search for the review that are being commissioned to us. So these four multiple sources, and it has to be peer reviewed. As I said, we will send our search strategy to the technical resource hubs above us, so they will review it. Then one major challenge is that out of these four mandatory databases, we only have the free one, Medline PubMed. We, as the institution, do not have access to Embase, Scopus, or Cochrane Central. So we are actually relying on other TRCs for these databases. So this is what the Cochrane review, they searched multiple numbers of databases and they came down to 931 records. Now some terminologies for the literature search, there's something called as free text or controlled vocabulary. Free text is just the words by its face value. So if, for example, we are searching fatty liver, it will give us the articles which mentions only fatty liver and not other synonymous terms like hepatic steatosis. So it will be free text, which are the keywords. But there's something called as the match terms, which many of you must have heard. Match term is, there are indexers who sit and tag papers by concept. So synonyms are grouped for you. So if I search for a match term fatty liver will come along with hepatic steatosis and other synonymous words. So database hire indexers who are actual people who will read each paper and will tag it with the concept label. Okay, so there are free text. The problem is that we miss papers if different words are being used. But the problem with controlled vocab is there is tagging lag because it is being manually done. So the lag might be there if the match term has not been tagged yet. And brand new papers also have a tagging lag. Then there is something called as Boolean operators. So 3 Boolean operators, and, or not. It is as the word suggests. So if we suppose search, this is a screenshot from PubMed. So if we just type NAFLD, we see that there are 47,000 odd results. If I type fatty liver, there are 79,000 results. But if I combine them with a Boolean operator that either the study has NAFLD or fatty liver, then it will have 80,000 results. So 47, 79, and 80. And if I combine them, that using both the terms, it will be somewhere 45,000. And you have to be careful about using the Boolean operator not, because you can immediately see the danger here that it comes down to 1383 studies only, and that discarded almost certainly contained relevant studies. That's why we use not very sparingly, and it can drop the papers that you actually want. So this is how the search is conducted, and these are called the blocks, number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5. So if you actually open a Cochrane paper, you will see that the authors, they combine these blocks as well through the Boolean operator. So number 1 block, so it is only one keyword, but it will have like 10, 12 keywords here. And then they will combine this block 1 and 2 with Boolean logic and or. Then there are 2, 3 important terms for the operators and filters. So there is something called as truncation, which is this asterisk. So suppose we have terms like steatosis, steatotic, steatohepatitis. So if we add a truncation here at steato, so it will pick up all these words that comes after this steato. Then and also for this truncation, they pick 4 alphabets that follows this and not like unlimited number of alphabets after this. Then phrases. So these are the quote unquote. So if I put this quote unquote in fatty liver, it will search the exact phrase and not fatty as separate and liver as separate. These are 2 of the most common operators used in the search strategy. Then these are field tags. So there are separate sessions on field tags itself. So these are TAB, title abstract, and the match term will be MH, full word text will be TW. So it will only search for this keyword or match term in the title abstract. So if I say NAFLD and in bracket title abstract, it will only search for those studies which include NAFLD in the title abstract and not in the full text. So we have to be careful about how we do this. So this is the example of the Cochrane review again. So for search strategy, we should create blocks. So the best strategy is to first identify the keywords, which are the keywords which you want to search for, and then map the mesh terms to those keywords, and then combine those blocks with the Boolean operators. So this is what they had done. One block for the condition, another block for the design, and third block for the weight reduction, the intervention. And then they joined it with the Boolean operator and. So this, if you open this paper, you will search this block and this. This is how the Word document looks like when you are forming your search strategy. So one page is open in PubMed or Scopus, for example, but another Word document page should be updated as we are going. So concept one, for example, this is for mobile apps, diet and blood pressure. So concept one will be mobile apps. We will identify the keywords. We will identify the field tags, and then we will join them with the Boolean operators. And then we will combine these three blocks depending on how we want to do this. So this is one block, two block, three block, and my search strategy will be block 1 and 2 and 3. So I've just skimmed through the search strategy, but you should read this in detail in order to develop a strong search strategy. Next is screening and selecting the studies. Before screening, we have to get organized. We have to export every record. Once you have searched in the PubMed, there is option to download those studies as a CSV file. We download that CSV file and then we upload it on our screening software called as Ryan. So there are two-stage screening. First, we will screen only title and abstract. So title abstract screening and then full text screening. And then we will include studies that meet our criteria. So two reviewers, independent reviewers are needed. We will tell them the PICO. We will tell them the inclusion-exclusion criteria. They will have to be thorough with the inclusion-exclusion criteria. And if there is a disagreement, a third person will be selected. And this is how I will skip through this, but this is for the Cochrane. So there are many softwares. Ryan is the free one. You can do fast title abstract screening and full text screening. There is also a paid version of Ryan, which has additional features, and Covidence, and then RevMed Breakthrough. Then most recognizable images in any systematic review is the Prisma flow diagram. This is how a Prisma flow diagram is. You identify the records from each database, then you tell how many were removed in screening, then how many full text you assessed, and you give reasons for exclusion at every step. So every study is accounted for with a reason, so the reader can retrace every decision. Then comes data extraction. Extraction again is very important because a lot of things will depend down the line on data extraction sheet, which we extract in the form of Excel, and we will assess the risk of bias down the line. So data extraction heavily depends again on the PICO format. So for example, our population will be that one variable will be age, sex, condition. So I will just show you one of the data extraction sheets of our ongoing systematic review of this. So this is the data extraction sheet, how it looks like. This is the author, title. This is actually from the guidelines that we are developing on hypothyroidism with DHR. So we have been given one PICO and then journals, country, setting, everything. So it is very elaborate document. So you extract each and every variable that is important in terms of your assessing the risk of bias, developing summary of findings, soft table down the line. So data extraction is developed under this PICO format. So these are the variables captured per study. This is ongoing SRMA, which I showed you. Then comes a very technical area, assessing the risk of bias. So all the studies that you got down to and extracted data from, now we will assess which of those studies were biased and to what level. So assessing risk of bias can be The risk of bias depends on the various study designs have various different tools to assess the risk of bias. So if there is randomized trials we have included, then ROB2 is this risk of bias tool. For non-randomized Robbins one, so these are the names that you will come across once you start doing systematic reviews. Newcastle, Ottawa scale, case control and cohort studies, and for diagnostic accuracy and so on and so forth. So as we know, for randomized trials, bias can come in at any step: randomization process, deviation from intended intervention, missing data outcome, measurement of the outcome, or selection of the reported result. So these are called the domains in the risk of bias tool. So there are 5 domains in ROB tool, and each domain is then rated as the low risk, some concern, or high risk. So this is how the ROB2 figure looks like. If you have gone through the systematic reviews, then these are high risk, these are some risk, and these are low risk. So for all domains, these are the domains, 5 domains, and this is for each study. So 4 studies in this systematic review. So this is from the Cochrane review that was published in 2011. In this, if you will see, there are 6 domains because at that time ROB1 was being used. So now ROB2 with 5 domains is being used. Then again, for non-randomized studies, there is a tool called as Robbins1. So there are 7 domains in ROB2. There were 5 domains in ROB2. There are 7 domains in Robbins1. Confounding is the most important source of bias in randomized studies, and then others. So this is how the Robbins1 figure also look like. So these all, if you see this, I have also mapped it to the softwares that are used for drawing these figures. So for ROB2, ROBVIS or ROB tool from Cochrane for non-randomized, Robbins1 again, ROBVIS tool and all these. So this is also called as traffic light figure. Then diagnostic accuracy, PODAS through Revman. So you can see the picture. Now, now you have every thing. You have the evidence. You have the to some extent quality of evidence. Then synthesizing and rating that evidence. Now the question is to pool the studies or not to pool the studies, whether to do meta-analysis or not. So there is something called as heterogeneity, which we study for this, which will come down. So we pool only this, the studies if they are alike enough, if they're similar enough. So there is clinical, either clinical homogeneity, methodological homogeneity, or statistical homogeneity. So there are supposed 5 outcomes, but homogeneity is only seen for 2 outcomes. So you pool the results only for those 2 outcomes, and synthesize. Otherwise, if meta-analysis is not an option, so you synthesize the results narratively. So this, so if we see the Peng study, the Cochrane study, these 2 outcomes only had pooled estimate, which was homogeneous. So they did meta-analysis or the forest plots for these 2 outcomes only, which we'll see down the line. Then there is, this is the, these are the epidemiological measures, effect measures, which we study in daily research studies also. So we have to choose an effect measure. When you combine results, you need to pick the right measure of effect. For suppose these are binary outcomes, then you calculate risk ratio, odds ratio, risk difference. Otherwise, for continuous, we see the mean difference or standardized mean difference and time to event hazards ratio. So this remains constant. 2-3 slides I've given how to calculate this risk ratio, odds ratio, depending. So in the treated arm, there are 10 deaths out of 100 treated. In standard care, 15 deaths. This is how you'll calculate risk ratio, odds ratio, risk difference, and number needed to treat. Just the maths that we already see in our research studies. Then what are confidence intervals? Confidence interval, an estimate without an interval is only half the story. So 95% confidence interval is the range of effects still compatible with the data. Think of the confidence interval as the margin of certainty. So if it is narrow, these arms, these are narrow. So this is a precise benefit. If these are too wide, we are too uncertain to be sure. And if it is narrow, straddling the line, this is the line of no effect, then precisely no difference. So width is equal to certainty. Does it cross the line of effect is important, because that means that it is no difference is still on table and non-significant. The third one. And 95 means that if you repeat the study many times, in about 95% of such intervals would capture the true event. So this is from the one of the examples. So these are various 5 trials. So each row is one study. The square is the point estimate. The line is the 95 interval, lower limit, upper limit. The vertical line is line of no effect, odds ratio 1. And diamond, this diamond at number 5 is the pooled estimate. So say combined effect with. And x-axis is the log scale. So I hope you understand now how to read a forest plot and okay. So a real forest plot significant or not, this is from Peng. So as I told you that they only found 2 outcomes where the outcomes were homogeneous to pool the effects. So body weight and BMI. So they only mapped this in forest plot, only those outcomes which were similar enough to pool. So we actually calculate something called as heterogeneity coefficient. Heterogeneity. So if you see these forest plots and just eyeball these, so if you see this, these studies are almost consistent going on one side of the line of null effect. So this is the heterogeneity. I square is the heterogeneity indicator. So heterogeneity is less, 0 to 40%. And if you see here, it is barely there is any overlap, and you don't pool in situations like this. Pooling means to meta-analyze. So this is I square is more than 75% here. So heterogeneity we study, first we can, how to see if heterogeneity is here. First you can just eyeball the forest plot. Otherwise we calculate there are 3 calculations, Cochrane skew, and then I square statistics and tau squared. So generally we say that I square more than 75%. We do not do the studies because studies are too different. So you calculate this through Revman or Revman Web for Q I square tau square for Cochrane reviews, and you can also use R in certain cases. So just to quickly then come to funnel plot. This is the publication bias. Publication bias is only that positive studies are getting published more. So you look at it through the funnel plot and you plot each study effect against its size. So for funnel plot, you need at least 10 or more studies. So Peng, the Cochrane review skipped the funnel plot because they had declared before in their protocol that if more than 10 studies are there, then only they will plot. Then my time is almost over, but just coming to the final important thing. So this is the point where systematic review meta-analysis is being done. Then you add one more arm, that is the grade. Grading of recommendation, assessment, development, and evaluation. Now we have the evidence, we have pooled or not pooled the evidence or narratively synthesized it. Now we will rate that evidence for the quality or the certainty of that evidence. So grade, I will there are four types qualities of evidence: high evidence, moderate, low, or very low. And there is a software, grade through software free of cost through Cochrane. If you go through, then you're very confident that the true effect is close, moderately confident, limited, very little. So there are 8 things that we learn when we also conducted a workshop in Feb where grade was discussed in detail, where we downgrade the evidence because we find some bias because of some reason. So these are actually this is actually an independent class. But downgrade because of these 5 reasons, upgrade if we have a large effect or dose response and all. So these are, I will not go in detail because of the time. What risk of bias is that if the studies of themselves are flawed. So when we saw the RCT or the non-randomized trial, then inconsistent. If the studies are not consistent, if 5 different stories is inconsistency. Indirectness is a great answer to a question nobody asked. So all these things, they drop our certainty level. So if we start, suppose we say RCT is the highest body of evidence, but if we find one of these, even one of the this downgrading thing, then we will downgrade the quality of evidence. So Peng, the Cochrane review, Peng et al., they started at high certainty of evidence, but then one outcome -2 for the risk of bias, then -1 for the indirectness. So they came from high to very low in the body of evidence. Then there is something called as a summary of finding table, which is very important for us as a TRC to give and generate to DHR to, then they will have a guideline development group meeting who will then study this soft table from all the systematic reviews being given. So this is a actually in 2011 summary of finding concept was not there. This is just I have made how the Cochrane, if that was done in today's time and age, would have generated a soft table. So this is summary of findings table. We start with the row of one outcome that they could pull BMI. So four of the seven trials, 294 participants here gave a pooled mean difference of minus 2.18. Statistically clear, are not crossing the null, and clinically plausible. So weight reduction lowers BMI, but notice the certainty here. So weight reduction is lowering the BMI, but because of certain risk of bias, the certainty came as very low. We started at high, but because they were randomized trial, but certainty came as very low. We dropped for the risk of bias, we dropped for inconsistencies, imprecision. So four downgrades brought it to very low. So soft, all these things, liver enzymes, histology, this PEG could not meta-analyze because of the heterogeneity. This is the grade certainty of this. Just 2 more minutes on writing up how you write the systematic review, and these are the common pitfalls. These are the resources and toolkits. Again, there are a lot of softwares for each level of conducting a systematic review or meta-analysis, and then you write an honest conclusion. So just quickly, in 1 minute, there are 3 reviews ongoing under TRC at IBS. One is on the sex differences in NAFLD-MASLD. So we had already published this narrative review in JCH this year. So this was our PICO for this. So if males and female differ in MASLD prevalence. So this is our scope and search strategy, PRISMA outflow. These 2 PICOs, hypothyroidism and one on epilepsy, has been commissioned by DHR to us. This PICO has been given by DHR to conduct systematic review on effectiveness and safety of community-based intervention for prevention of hypothyroidism in population at risk of iodine deficiency. So this is our search strategy, PRISMA, and then again, this is on epilepsy care, affordable medication PHC model, including epilepsy care. So this is just a snapshot of how systematic review. These are workshops from January, February. We are again try to conduct one in August, July, August, the next quarter, 2 of them July.
Thank you very much. It's a very excellent Samita. There's a lot to learn from all of us, and we is how little we know on systematic review. The time is short, so we'll have to go on to the next presentation, and thank you very much. All students must learn it. We may have a repeat class soon. Thank you.
Totally different topic than the previous. My topic is on incidents and implications of alcohol-induced recompensation in alcohol-related cirrhosis. So there will be some few new terms for the residents to understand and remember. Maybe we can improve the way we write our diagnosis at the end. So this will be my outline. I'll skip it. So basically, coming to the global data, around 2.3 billion active alcohol users, 25% of the proportion of the global cirrhosis-related death is because of alcohol. And India accounts for nearly 1/6 of the global deaths of cirrhosis, and India is possibly the 25% in India. It must be nearly 40% of the deaths due to cirrhosis are because of alcohol. So earlier we used to think this is, cirrhosis to be a three clinical state disease: compensated, decompensated, and death. So with the rate of change from compensated to decompensated, odds of doing survival according to the compensated, decompensated. Over 20 years followed, the compensated patients, only 32 remain compensated, and around 41% die because of decompensation. So currently, what we need to understand, it is not a simple two-state or three-state disease, it is a multi-state disease. Compensated cirrhosis is further classified between those with CSPH. CSPH is clinically significant portal hypertension more than 10 mmHg. And then the next stage will be CSPH present but no varices. CSPH with varices will be the next stage. And coming to decompensation, bleeding alone is the stage 3. And non-bleeding complications have poorer outcomes, so they are stage 4. And there is a new term called further decompensation, that is second decompensation beyond the first one, that is more than 2 decompensating elements, that is stage 5. And further complications, late decompensation, that should be in our diagnosis, late decompensation, that is presence of SBP, organ failures, HRS, ACLF, or other organ dysfunction, that should be labeled as late decompensation. So alcoholic liver disease usually presents with the decompensated liver cirrhosis. But recently what is coming up is with the etiological cue, the disease is partly reversible or it can regress. And the state is not a one-directional flow as we used to think earlier. It can go back some, at least a stage or two regress. So what we understand, first decompensation, either bleeding, ascites, or overtaking. Further decompensation, second decompensation of any one of these over the previous one, or even recurrent variceal bleed is a further decompensation. More than 3 paracentesis within 1 year or presence of SBP or occurrence of HRS is a further decompensation. Recurrent HE more than 2 episodes in 6 months' time is a further decompensation. Somehow there is ambiguity in the jaundice, bilirubin. I'm not going into details of that. What we need to focus here is nearly 61% of the patients of the alcoholic liver disease, they present with a decompensated state, with 55% with ascites and 6% with variceal bleed. So, and the outcome, long-term outcome, ultimately depends on what decompensation was presented or not. No complication as the worst has the best outcome, and HE has the worst outcome in between. This is the line for the both ascites and variceal bleed. So the outcomes and long-term survival changes according to the presence of the complication one or further complication one. So coming to the topic like abstinence as primary therapy, we all know from long time that alcohol abstinence is the main core of the center of the treatment of alcoholic liver disease. And it helps in both improving the outcomes in both early compensated state of alcoholic cirrhosis as well as the advanced decompensated state. Abstinence is helpful in both the conditions. So active alcohol, I would touch on this patients with who are abstinent at both HCPG of 10 to 20 or even beyond 20 mmHg, high HCPG patients also have better survival with abstinence. So abstinence is helpful in both with low pressures and high pressures advanced disease patients as well. And what we see here is coming to the abstinence as a, like if you look at the patients who are on the transplant list, a significant number of patients will fall out of the transplant need because of the recompensation or improvement in the liver disease to the extent that they don't need transplant anymore. That was shown in the study to be around 9%. And the predictors were low belt and long-term. And out of those patients who become compensated on the waiting list, 75% of them remain transplant-free and alive at the end of even 5 years. So once they achieve this compensated state, they live long once the etiology is not there. And usually this happens after the 12 months of abstinence. Median time at which where the dropout, transplant list dropouts happen is at 12 months after being listed for decompensated ALD. So quitting alcohol is the main outcome driver here. So how do we define hepatic decompensation? This term was defined in 22 and published in 23 for the first time. And by Vinod Saban, hepatic recompensation is defined as the etiological cure. Sustained, coming to the alcohol, sustained abstinence of 3 months or more than 3 months is etiology removed and complications resolved like ascites and HE. And definitely there is, Vinod Saban has very strict definition. Even they should be off diuretics, off rifaximin, off lactulose to call complications resolved completely. and these to be off for 12 months. And there is no bleeding episode in the last 1 year, and functions restored, like MELD should be less than 10, CTP should come down to 8. And even if these patients can continue to still have a CSPH, but this is the strict guidelines defined by the Wavino 7 for hepatic recompensation. And there is one more ambiguity or expanded criteria, which is more clinically relevant or pragmatic, which includes, because most of the clinicians avoid stopping diuretics or stopping lactulose even after the patients remain decompensated for 1 year. So the expanded criteria of recompensation includes those patients who are continuously on low dose diuretics or lactulose still remain compensated for more than 1 year. This expands the recompensated patients from usually 7% to 37% of the patients of clinical improvers. So the expanded criteria should also be looked into. And this is this was published after the definition, which shows that the recompensation happens in 18% of the patients at 24 months of time. And the all-cause mortality and liver-related mortality go down after 6 years in patients who achieve recompensation vis-a-vis those who do not. So this is exactly the same topic that was given to me, published this year. This has looked at not just the incidence, it has also looked into the implications of abstinence-induced recompensation in alcohol-related cirrhosis. This is a multi-center European trial, 17 centers, and presence of first or further decompensation, both were included. And the primary endpoint was removal of the underlying etiology, that is absence of 3 months, and resolution of ascites HG, absence of variceal bleeding for 12 months, and restoration of hepatic function, as we defined the hepatic recompensation, the Wavino 7 guidelines. So this is the study details. 633 patients, 197 recompensated, 436 remain non-recompensated. And this is the inclusion. MELD was 19. The CTP was child B to C. Ascites was present in most. I'll skip. Index decompensation to abstinence was, this is an important thing. Within 1 month, 58% of the patients became abstinent. After developing decompensation, more than half became abstinent. And further decompensation was present in 47% of the patients. Because 75% if jaundice was considered as a decompensation. Otherwise, 47%, half of the patients had further decompensation at the time of inclusion. This is the important outcome of the study, where they have seen that 12% at 1 year achieve decompensation, and median time to achieve decompensation is 15.3 months. And that means to say, even at 1 year, if the patient has some ascites or some decompensation, we can wait for at least many can become recompensated to the extent they can fall out of healthy list. And at 5 years, 33%, 1/3 of the patients of alcoholic cirrhosis with decompensation, they become recompensated and remain recompensated. And the 1 month rule is early abstinence initiated within 1 month of the index decompensation event doubles the likelihood of long-term compensation, as you can see here. So once the patient becomes a decompensated liver disease, early de-addiction, early abstinence is the key for the long-term outcome. And even if you look at the patients with further decompensation, as defined earlier, the further decompensated patient, the more than one decompensation had 20% 5-year recompensation rate, versus 36% in patients who had only one decompensation at the time of becoming abstinent. And as the number of decompensating events increases, the chances of achieving recompensation drops by 35% for every added decompensating event. So coming to the what is the effect of recompensation on mortality? There is total 80% reduction in the all-cause mortality compared to those who continue to take alcohol or those who, additionally, there is zero liver-related deaths. Whatever mortality that is because of the non-liver-related deaths, there is no liver-related deaths observed during this 5-year follow-up. And additionally, there is almost elimination of the risk of HCC with abstinence and recompensation. Those who achieve abstinence had zero de novo cases of HCC, while those did not achieve had chance of developing SSC in 5-year follow-up. That's a very good. So, but the recompensation rate is not all pure. It's still fragile. So there is danger of relapse. 80% return to acute decompensation upon relapse or returning to drinking. The inflammatory undercurrent persists. Although the CRP levels go down, it is not normal. And we should monitor them with non-invasive tests in the follow-up. There is a need to assess how the NATs work in this group of patients. And there is one small follow-up data after the previous study that by the same authors from Vienna. What they have shown is how the NITs work after recompensation. This is a very interesting data. As you can see here, if the LSM in recompensated patients, if the LSM is more than 25, almost there is 100% chance of having clinically significant portal hypertension, that is FPG more than 10, with an ROC of 0.89. That, but if LSM liver stiffness is less than 15 kPa, there is 75% sensitivity and negative predictive value on 88% sensitivity of ruling out CSPH. Okay, but if because of these two outliers, if we cut down the this to 12 kPa, there is 100% we can rule out clinically significant portal hypertension in patients who achieve recompensation. I like the way they have presented this data. And with NITs, we can follow the CSP recompensated patients to decide whether they are going to improve or not in future. And the same results were duplicated or replicated with the China data in the letter to editor of this paper. What they have shown is similar results. The 75% reduction in all-cause mortality with early abstinence. Definitely, they have also reaffirmed the 1 month intervention window, 1 month golden window of abstinence after first decompensating event is the key for long-term recompensation. And higher disease severity at the onset lower the chances of recompensation in the long term. So the outcome in patients who have recompensated is something like a second ladder game trajectory, sustained or supported abstinence and early de-addiction intervention will improve the chances of outcomes in patients with recompensation. While alcohol relapse or lack of socioeconomic support or recurrent decompensating event, surgery or infections, they bring it down the long-term outcomes in patients with patients who have achieved recompensation in alcoholic liver disease. So this will be my last slide. To conclude, the key takeaways is reversibility in alcoholic liver disease is real. Abstinence-induced recompensation is a measurable reality. It occurs in nearly 1/3 of the patients at follow-up of 5 years. And timing is very important. It is everything. The 1 month rule is critical. Aggressive and early intervention of doubles the likelihood of successful recompensation. And once we achieve the recompensation, which is a zero risk state for development of HCC or death, liver-related death at least, and achieving and maintaining recompensation rate is a holistic management. And maybe we should also consider not just the strict Baveno guidelines, but the expanded clinical criteria also should be part of the diagnosis of recompensation. And I would like to end my talk by saying liver is one organ that knows how to forgive. Given the chance, it rebuilds what was lost.
Good, sir. So could you have not given the ILBS data on recompensation?
Sir, I don't think we have the
We have
exact
enough data. We could have worked hard and seen how, recompense. A lot of work is done. PGI has published so much, AIMS has published. We could have looked into it, and there is enough scope.
We haven't yet published.
Yeah, we haven't published. We have lost on several accounts. But this morning class, we should certainly work hard. Secondly, we have also lost on the integrated model of care, which we started at others have published, and that's also 8 or 10 years. So I think the psychiatry and the de-addiction department also needs to pull their socks up and see. Going back to the concept of recompensation, Uh, I want to, no, same the JDAP paper. Did they include the jaundice reversal? Because decompensation does not include now jaundice.
Yes, sir. But
So a person has no ascites, no varices, no bleed, or no HE, but has jaundice, alcohol.
for definition, there should be CTPA and MEL less than 10. That is the strict criteria, and that would not happen if they have jaundice.
So Pavino 8 after this also has not included jaundice.
Yes, sir.
So
Because they say alcoholic hepatitis jaundice will resolve once the inflammation settles. Especially in alcoholic, they have not included the bilirubin. And there is ambiguity, but they definitely Baveno is against using it.
maybe you should write a letter. Any other comments on recompensation? It's a very new concept, and I agree vulnerability remains. But I'm surprised nobody got HCC because it is classical. Once a guy stops drinking alcohol, the liver regenerates, and the incidence of HCC is higher in those who are abstainers than in non-abstainers. Any more data? Anyone wants to make a comment? It's such an important topic. Okay. With no more comments, thank you, Shastri.
And this